Hi, I'm Sara.
And I'm Zack, and this is episode 564 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, Sara and I talk about struggle, hardships, and how to reframe failure in your life. It's a different conversation, Sara, than than I think I normally have. As we say in this talk, I've been talking about AI with everybody that comes on the show. So.
You're going to ask me about AI.
Yeah,
We're going there.
I am. Before we get into, honestly, some of the more important stuff that I think you and I talk about, let's be a little bit lighter and let's talk about what's your favorite thing you're doing with AI? What's like your favorite AI prompt that you're using, or just way that you're using an artificial intelligence tool to make your life easier?
So I use a couple of tools on a regular basis. ChatGPT every day for everything. I've just kind of gotten into the habit of how do I use this first, just to kind of kickstart this thing that I'm about to do, or this thing that I'm about to write. I'll ask it to make me spreadsheets because I hate setting up spreadsheets. And it saves me that mental hurdle of like, where do I start with this thing? Like this quarter, my project that I'm working on is finding ways to make the lab community more valuable for our members. And so I've been using it to work on that project, but I used it to scope out that project. Like, what would this project look like? What would be some of the milestones? And I think that that's a often forgotten part of working on any project in business, is like taking the time to scope it out properly and define what done looks like. So I used ChatGPT to help me with that, but also Copilot to help me create the project timeline, and also the surveys that I'm sending to our lab members to like get some information, because that's like the first step of improving what we already have, is to take survey and find out what they love about lab and what they want to see more of. So I've just kind of been going back and forth between the two and sort of letting it be my project manager.
I really like that. First thing, kudos, client feedback. I think that's hard for attorneys and people to do, is to actually ask for feedback. I know a lot of people that are saying, my clients think this. It's like, well, if you actually asked them. So kudos for client feedback. I love using chat as a way to scope stuff. It knows what project management platform that I use, and I've trained it to be able to create a CSV to upload exactly what I need, so I can do my milestones, my project, my subtasks, and all that stuff. But having it help me scope, I love that one. What I'm getting into now is going through what it's scoped and like taking the time to check its work, to like really dig into each individual task that it's putting there. Because like, much like the photos that chat creates or that AI creates, like from 30,000 feet, everything looks hunky-dory. Everything looks really good. But then when you dig into the specifics, you got to adjust some things sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't know all. Eventually it might. But yeah, 100%.
Eventually it might.
It's learning our team, which is cool, because I will tell it, who's potentially involved in this project and who I can source for some feedback or interview, or, other people on our team that can help me with this project, because I don't want to do it all by myself. So that's been really helpful too. But then sometimes it'll suggest, that this person maybe take this part of it. And I'm like, no, that's not really part of what they do. So you definitely have to adjust and kind of reach.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Using ChatGPT to kind of scope out what you're doing. And I mean, that makes you, it's kind of that centaur thing. It makes you do more better,
It does. And it keeps you from getting overwhelmed and burned out, which is what we're going to talk about partly in our conversation in this
Yeah.
episode. I mean, there were a couple weeks there where I've gotten behind, just, life
Hmm.
started happening and piling
Oh
up.
yeah.
And I told ChatGPT, like, hey, I'm in the middle of this project and middle of the quarter, and I'm a couple weeks behind here. Like, where should I jump in? Where would you suggest that I jump back in? Like, what's 5 things I could
Yeah.
do this week that is going to get me further along in this project?
I absolutely love that because I've used the word triage with my chat GPT so many times, like having it saying like, okay, I need to get this done in this amount of time. So really, really love the project management aspect of it, but the realistic project management aspect of it. So yeah. Well, now here, before we go way off in the deep end with AI, let's get back into a little bit more emotional intelligence and go to our conversation where about leaning into hardships and reframing failure.
Hi, I'm Sara Muender, and I'm a business coach here in the Lawyerist Lab program.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for being with me again. You've been on the podcast umpteen times now, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's been a minute, so I love doing this. I'm really glad to be back. Let's see what
Yeah.
kind of juicy conversations we can have.
Well, you and I were talking that everybody that's come on the podcast lately has wanted to talk about AI this, AI that, how you can use AI in your firm. And you and I use AI plenty in the day. But I think one of the things I really like about our coaches and especially you is the kind of emotional intelligence. Your emotional
Ooh,
intelligence, your ability to kind of honestly do the things that the bots can't. Do the
yeah,
things that it will at least be really difficult for artificial intelligence
yeah, to
to
replicate.
mimic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about kind of you gave me an idea or a topic of like the gift and the struggle. And this, man, that idea, the gift in the struggle, when you break it apart is just like so fascinating to me. Kind of it's like flipping your emotions around,
Yeah.
flipping your perspective on your emotions around. Um, yeah, if you don't mind, let's kind of get into that. So you coach a lot of law firm owners, a lot of our labsters and whatnot. When you think about the ones that are hitting the wall, that are
hmm
getting stuck, that are starting to struggle, what do you see? What's usually going on underneath that for them?
Yeah. So I've seen it all. And every single person that I have coached eventually gets to that point at one time or another. No matter what it is they're working on, no matter what phase of business they're working on, we all tend to kind of plateau sometimes or hit a wall or just get discouraged. And so
Hmm.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I would much rather talk about emotional intelligence than artificial intelligence any day. But also, I think it's so important because it's not talked about enough. Like
Hmm.
on this podcast, we offer a lot of strategy. We talk about, the best ways to run a business, but part of the healthy business model that lawyers came up with is also having a healthy owner
Yeah.
and is such a foundational part of a healthy business, right? So, yeah, I don't want to talk strategy today. I don't want to talk about, tips and tricks and technology and things like that, but like real human experience, which often shows up like, there are a lot of underlying emotions in going on when we hit a wall or we feel loss of momentum.
Hmm.
Burnout is very common these days. And I think that burnout looks different for different people, but I think sometimes it's common to sort of get stuck in this like constant state of burnout that you get used to and can't even imagine like what it's like to actually have peace and joy and awe, like all the positive
Yeah.
emotions that we want in life and that we want to get from our business.
Sorry, I just want to hang on that for a second, if you don't mind, Sarah. The idea that, if we get stuck in that constant state of burnout, and that's our neutral, that's our normal. You kind of said, or at least hinted at, that you don't know what it looks like to not be burning out. And I want to emphasize that for our listeners right here, because when you are in a state like that, personally, when I'm in an unhealthy state that is equivalent to that, you do not see that the other side, the other way, it's not a grass is greener sort of thing. You don't even see the healthy aspect of what it could be when you're not in a constant state of burnout.
Yeah. And we think maybe we get glimpses of it sometimes if we think back to what we hoped life would be like at this present stage. But I don't think we take the time to slow down enough to really look at it and look at how we're doing and look at how we're feeling and how we operate. We just get so caught up in the day to day, and there's just so many things pulling at us from, on the personal side and the business side. There's always work that needs to be done. And I am encouraging all of us to just take a step back for a minute. And it doesn't have to be some crazy like weekend retreat, although that's nice too. That's important.
Yeah.
But to just slow down for a minute. And I used to keep this little sign around my house. I like printed it out and put it in a frame all over my house. And it just says, just slow down. And that has been so powerful for me personally, because when I slow down, I can actually take inventory of how I'm feeling and assess, am I operating in a healthy way? Am I operating in the best way that is ultimately going to determine how I'm feeling, but also like the results, the results in your life, the results in your business. So yeah, I just don't think we take enough time, and it shows up. Like, I think I hear people ask themselves, and it'll come up in coaching calls, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. It seems like everyone else is crushing it. I don't know why I keep hitting these walls. I don't know why I can't seem to get out of this burnout or get to this stage that I want to get to. So it's like the comparison comes in. That's immediately what comes in, because instead of comparing how we're currently feeling to how we would want to feel, ideally, we compare how we feel to what we think others are feeling or how they're doing in their lives and in their businesses. So that's like the first, kind of sign is the comparison trap. Why is this taking so long? So take a step back and look at that. And what are the things that you're saying to yourself about yourself? I think that would be a good first step in getting perspective.
It seems counterintuitive sometimes, though, to take a step back when you feel behind. It's tough to take a step back when you feel like, well, I mean, if you look around, you look at your competitors, you look at your peers, and you feel like they're a couple steps ahead of you. Stopping and taking a weekend does not feel like it's going to do anything for me. What do you say to your labsters that have that in their mind? Because I imagine that's not an uncommon thought or response.
It's very common. But I think that they think that the people who are successful and crushing it and having the lives and the businesses that they want are just go, go, go. And they're going fast and they're rushing through life. But that's not the reality. The most successful business owners that I've known actually operate a little slower throughout their day. They take the time to set intentions. They take the time to process information that they're getting, and so that they can make the right decisions. So it really, and it doesn't even have to be a weekend retreat. It doesn't even have to be like a day. It can just be, I'm going to take 15 minutes and set a timer and just like process this CLE that I just took in instead of just rushing to the next thing. So that's one practical tip we can do, is just build more space into our day to take inventory, to process, and to kind of adjust what direction we want to go. Because if we just keep going, we're likely to keep going in the wrong direction. And you can build negative momentum, or you can build positive momentum. And so it's sort of like taking a step back in order to take 5 steps forward in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's at least attributed to Abraham Lincoln, the idea of taking the time to sharpen your axe. You know, if I've got 2 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend an hour and a half sharpening my axe or something like that. I think that's powerful. I think that's powerful.
It's worth it.
But we also wanted to talk about, as we said at the top of this, is the gift in the struggle. Is that what is kind of inherent in that to me is that we're going to struggle. You know, it's, you look around and it looks like everybody else is having it really, really simple, really, really easy. And we're just trudging through. We're in, you know, and we want to be out of that. We want to not have that. We think nobody, you know, other people don't have that. But you're saying, you know, there's another side to this. Talk a little bit more about that with me.
Yeah, what a concept. Instead of running away from our feelings, instead of running away from the struggles and the challenges, to actually, again, take that step back and look at it and just look at what's happening, and that it may be very uncomfortable. And it is usually very uncomfortable to do that because we are wired as humans to want to seek better and to seek, safety. But that's a form of self-sabotage when we run from the struggles that are actually, offer an opportunity to sharpen the axe, to make us stronger, more resilient people. That shows up in so many ways. And so that's what I'm also encouraging in this conversation is, if you're going through some challenges in your life or in your business, which we all do, and they're never going to go away, it's never going to be a perfect situation, lean into it, embrace it, and actually be willing to sort of sit with the pain for a minute. And that in itself is so hard to do, but it takes a lot of courage. For sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do it in bite sizes, because we also don't want to get flooded. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves by, that's why therapists exist, and they are very skilled at walking people through difficult things in life or past traumatic events in a very safe way that's not going to completely derail and overwhelm someone. So sometimes it takes, again, I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'm talking about just stop right now. And if you're listening to this, take a moment to think about what's your biggest challenge in life right now, and embrace it. Let's look at it. Let's face it, because that is going to open up subconsciously the space for us to eventually solve that problem or that challenge. For the ones that we can't solve, like, for example, when things happen in life that are just completely out of our control, we can find acceptance with it. And then there's a peace that comes with that. But when you can make peace with the hard, the suck, the struggle, the challenge, you are going to take more of a solution-oriented approach to, at the very least, making the best of it. If that's possible. I think it is possible with anything we go through in life.
Well, I think it's important to note that you're not saying wallow in it.
Right.
We're not saying, sink into depression and go, woe is me, I can't do anything about whatever your struggle is, whether it's financial or emotional or physical or it is. It sounds like you're saying, just be there with it, and that helps you approach it. That helps you Because again, it sounds like you're saying still go through it, still get past the struggle, especially, if we're talking about financial struggles in our business, we still want to get past it, but not trying to get away from it come hell or high water.
Yeah, or just completely ignore that it's there. That's not going to do anything positive for us.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I never knew how to be angry. I never knew how to feel anger or process anger or even identify anger. And so I pushed it down my entire life. And eventually, all negative emotions have to come out at some point because they want to be seen. So they eventually came out in very self-destructive ways. And so when I started like my personal healing journey and I went to therapy, I actually got this tattoo. I don't know if you can see it in the video if you're watching this on YouTube, but it's a tiger, and I named her Serenity. And this is my reminder. Half of the tiger's face is angry, and the other half is more like stoic and serene. And it's my reminder that it's normal to feel negative emotion in life. It's normal and it's healthy. But to your point, we don't sit in it. We don't wallow in it and feed that. We look at it, we acknowledge it, we embrace it, and then we go, what do we do with it now? And sometimes just shining a light on the dark, the hard, the ugly things in life is enough to either make it go away or to make it less scary and to build our inner resilience, which is so important for business owners. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about this, because you have to be willing to embrace challenge. You have to be willing to embrace failure. That is a very real part of being a business owner. The more willing you are to embrace failure, the more successful you're going to end up being, because again, it puts you in that solution mindset of we go, okay, there it is. We made this mistake. We went off track for a while. We hired the wrong person, or we made this personal decision that wasn't the best. All right, there it is. We acknowledged it. Now what? And then that puts us more in a mindset that is problem solving rather than problem avoiding.
I like that, like recognizing failure, or trying to force the issue almost as quickly as possible. I was reading a book recently, and the person was saying, as scientists, our job is to fail as quickly as possible. It's to find out what's wrong with our assumptions as quickly as possible. And if you put it in that perspective, well, then, that's not really failure, right? That's just getting information. So
that's just data. That's just information. And I think, we want to avoid failure. We want to avoid admitting our mistakes and avoid facing the negative things in life because we make it mean something about ourselves. But as business owners, I'm encouraging you to be neutral with it, look at it, and pay attention to the things that you're telling yourself about yourself in any situation, but realize that it's, what's going on in your life or business is not a reflection of who you are as an individual. It's not a reflection of your worth or your value or your lovability or your likability. It's just a reflection of what is the current state of things in life now. And now what can I do about it?
How do I affect it? Well, so you've walked through something recently that you said really brought a lot of this into perspective. Would you be open to sharing a little bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I am an open book, and I have recently gone through some personal tragedy. It's still new. I'm still in the grieving process. And what I've learned about grief is that it's never really over. It just takes different forms day to day. There's no one right way through it. So what I can tell you is that, today I am able to get perspective of the whole situation and my life as a whole. A couple of months ago, I lost my fiance to suicide. And it was one of those things that was something I never thought I could get through. You
Yeah.
Like we think there's certain things in life we just would not be able to make it. And, if, something happened to your kids or your spouse, and I had my whole life planned out. In fact, we were supposed to get married this last Sunday on 5/25/25. That was going to be our wedding date. And now my life is taking a much different, path. And so it's been incredibly hard, obviously, especially being home at the time and being the one that found him. And then, having to tell his family and his 3 kids, and of course my 3 kids as well. It's definitely been the hardest thing that I've ever gone through.
Mm-hmm.
But perspective wise, I have 2 choices. I could either let this whole situation completely destroy me. Like there's an easy path of that, right? Or I could let it make me more resilient. And I truly feel like at this point there, I don't know that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that we can make meaning out of any situation. So I am choosing to take this loss, to take this grief and this horrible, traumatic experience and use it to make me a better person so that I can make something of the pain. I don't want his pain to be wasted. I don't want the pain that me and my children are going through to be for nothing. So I'm determined to find meaning in it, not just for me and the rest of my life, but for other people. Like that's my new purpose, is to take that and how can I use this to help other people? So it's tough to talk about. It's not a pretty thing, but I think I'm doing a good job of embracing it and embracing just how hard it is. Like when people ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, I don't know. I'm still here. I'm functioning. I'm thriving. Sometimes I'm not doing well. Sometimes I'm falling apart. But overall, I keep pulling myself up. And sometimes I just focus on the next right thing.
Okay.
For those that are listening, we tend to compare what we go through in life to what other people have gone through in life. Yeah. And I think that can be helpful in some ways. Like it does give you perspective of like today's problems really aren't that bad compared to what it could be.
And sometimes it makes you feel less alone,
right.
if you've done, like you're part of a group or something. Yeah.
For sure. But then the other part of that that's not helpful is when you're dismissing or diminishing the challenges that you're actually going through in life or that you have been through. Because I believe all pain is relative. It's relative to your experience and your tolerance level for it.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you have been through something tragic like that, definitely know you're not alone and there's a way through it. But if you haven't and you're just like, well, gee, I feel bad for complaining about, this annoying client that I talked to today or something, like, don't feel bad about that either. Because it is all relative. And those are just all opportunities to challenge us in the right way that we need to be challenged.
To me, I think what's important in it, and I what you said there really does resonate, because I think our pain is relative. It really is. I can't compare mine to anybody. I can't compare my struggle to anybody because it's mine. It's not theirs. But I think one of the takeaways for me here is, you're not bullshitting me with the gift and the struggle. When you say like that idea sounds like a really cool, thing that you put on your wall, and it's a nice little thing to say, and you put it on a coffee mug or something. And it's just a little platitude and it doesn't really mean anything, but for you, certainly it means something. It really means something. It's you're not just saying, we'll find the purpose in this. Sit with it. Because like you said, it would have been really easy for you to try to get away from it as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Get away from the pain, get away from the idea, get away from all the things as quickly as possible. And that Well, I don't want to make any comments on whether something would have been right or wrong, but it certainly wouldn't have been productive.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, this is for me, it's life or death because I'm also sober and I'm in recovery. And so I've had to figure out how to make that my priority through all of this. Because
Hmm.
again, that would have been a perfect excuse to, go out and drink and numb the
Right.
pain. So it actually gives me more reason to keep going and get through the day, stay sober, focus on my mental health. And what you said about not comparing. I think we're kind of bringing this conversation back full circle. That's why it's so unproductive to compare your life and your situation or your business
Yeah.
to somebody else's because you just don't know what they've
You
gone
don't know
through
what's
and
going on.
they
Yeah.
don't know what you've gone through. So I think like my takeaway message that I want people to walk away with from our conversation is you are right where you need to be. And if it's not where you want to be, well, we can do something about that. That's why business coaches exist. That's why I have a job. We can absolutely, there always is something that we can do to make our situation better. But you're right where you need to be. And I would say, for people listening, like stop being so hard on yourself and feeling like a failure and saying all these negative things about where you're at, because it's all part of the journey of
Hmm.
learning and becoming the person you're meant to be.
I love that idea of you're right where you need to be, at least certainly in this context, because if I'm where I need to be, then I can look around. I can take a breath. I can enjoy the moment. I can figure out what I'm going to do next. If I'm where I need to be, I don't need to be in a rush to get out of where I am.
Right.
And I think that really goes to what you're saying earlier of taking a moment, planning, thinking about what's going on, sharpening your axe. Um, yeah. And again, the idea of you're right where you need to be sometimes can gloss over people. When you hear that, you think you hear the meaning of the words.
It's like you know how lawyers think, Zach.
It's like I've been there. It's like I've been
Yeah.
scared shitless trying to figure out how I was going to pay, all my employees the day before payroll.
Yeah.
And I tell you what doesn't work is ignoring that or sitting there and thinking about how easy it must be for the person down the street who, you know, um, who just has it, easier because that's how I imagine them as having it easier.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess inherent in the being in the place that you need to be is also not being behind.
Say
You're
more
not
about that.
behind. You're not behind. Because I think that a lot of people, and I know you run into this a lot, or just think they're not just doing things fast enough.
Yeah.
They're not doing things as quickly as they need to. They're behind everybody else. And is that something that you
Mm.
kind of come to with a lot of the labsters? I assume so.
Yeah. Well, and it's because they haven't taken the time to just stop and deal with the challenge that they keep running into and think
Mhm.
through it. They just keep trying to run away from it and change the circumstances without changing the underlying issue or the underlying problem. And so, with the labsters that I coach, their circumstance of their business is a result of a pattern that has replayed over and over and over. We all have certain tendencies. We all bring our humanness and our limitations into business. So, what we find when we dive deeper into coaching is we look for that underlying reason why they keep hitting the same walls. They keep ending up where they don't want to be. That's just a symptom of something deeper that's going on. And so we really look at what's really going on here. What have you been avoiding? What have you been running away from? We tend to stay busy so we don't have to acknowledge that because it is painful. It's hard to be honest with ourselves. But
Yeah.
if we keep hiring the wrong person, for example, it could be a result that we just keep trying to hire someone that we want to get along with. That's, maybe that's the pattern that we just keep repeating instead of doing the thing that's harder and figure out how to operate within a business with someone that we might not be friends with, but that's what the business needs. That's just an example.
No, that's interesting because to me, I can connect that with the failure being data. Sometimes the harder thing is actually, or the thing that's harder to do is actually pushing the issue. We can stay busy. We can keep rearranging the deck chairs. We can in a law office, you can always stay busy and you think, oh, well, I did so much today. But did you face the issue? Did you try to make it break? Did you make it, did you try to get more data by making the decision that would, either show you that it's going to fail or show you that it's going to succeed? Because that is a tough ass decision to make sometimes, is when you realize that based on this, it's either going to fail or succeed. And I've put a lot of effort into this thing and I don't know that I want to know that it's going to fail. I don't think I want to know that data,
And yet that's our biggest fear. And it goes back to the willingness to fail as many times as it takes to get it right.
Yeah.
And I give you a personal example, just something that I did today. So I tend to let my home get a little disarrayed. And, now that the kids are home from summer, it's getting worse. And I'm currently living in a smaller place right now. So hence the need to have some good systems at home and create some structure and probably get rid of a lot of things. I think that's one of the issues. I just have too many things that I'm collecting. So my tendency is to just rearrange the apartment. And I'll move furniture. I literally did that earlier today. I moved some furniture around thinking it was going to make me feel better in my home. And it did. It gave me that dopamine hit. But then I'm looking around and going, there's still the exact same amount of stuff. And we still don't have a system for keeping that from happening again.
But I was busy. But I got work done. And I feel that so much, that idea that I'm staying busy. That's procrastination a lot of times. That's why I clean. That's why I get things clean, because I'm not doing the thing that I should be doing, the thing that's gonna, that could fail.
This can show up in so many small and big ways in life. And so if you're listening, I really encourage you to think of something that you've been avoiding, whether that's in business or in your personal life. Maybe it's a tough conversation you need to have with someone. Maybe that's a tough conversation you need to have with yourself and be like, this isn't working. I need help. That's the first step. And then all of a sudden, you're on the right path to finding a better situation or finding solutions to make things better.
Well, Sarah, let's leave them with that. I think that's good advice.
A good challenge.
It's a good challenge. Seriously, if you're listening to this, you've got something. You've got something you can do that with. I've got something I can do that with. I've thought of 34, 35 things in the course of this conversation. So, but this has been a nice conversation, Sarah. This has been a gift. This has been very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for being willing to have this conversation with me, because it's a tough one. It's tough, but vulnerability is where the answers lie, and we want to hear from you guys listening too. We want to hear about what is going on in your life and in your business. And if we can help, me and the other business coaches in Lab, we want to help you get to that next level. My last comment I'll say is, if you want what you've never had, you've got to be willing to do what you've never done. And you don't have to do it alone. Us in Lab and our community, we can help you do it. There's my plug.
Love it. Love it. Once again, Sarah, thanks for being with me, and thanks for sharing. I really appreciate this conversation.
Me too. Thanks, Zack.